Oh, I got the wraps for you.
So I'm just getting situated. Okay, cool. So as per usual, feel free to. I'll try my best to keep an eye on the chat, and I'll if I miss something, feel free to chime in. Uh, no worries on having to step out for choir there. I'm going to do my best to cover kind of a lot of things and sort of a broad sort of concept. And hopefully I do cover as much as I can. And this today would definitely be the day if there are questions that come up to ask as we go. I'll do my best to stop occasionally to answer some things and to ask questions or see if anybody has questions. And yeah, so today, yeah, let me get screen sharing going. Today, we're talking about best practices for collaboration online. Um, I have here on my notes to let you all know that today it's really about providing awareness for you to be able to Google questions that you have more easily and or know what you maybe need to know basically because the idea of collaborating online involves a lot of parts and a lot of moving parts but uh, if you know what you need, it's easy to start looking for things online if you know the terminology or contacting, like we were talking about earlier, contacting help desk or contacting me um, to get some more specifics into what you need for your particular projects. Um, so I'm just going to leave you there I go. Um, uh, so the first thing that I want to cover is some really basic terminology for different types of audio files that you and video files that you might find yourself using in collaboration situations and where they're best used. Um, so that includes collaboration situations such as virtual ensembles, sending people audio or video to be able to hear their parts or to be able to play along with or to for them to send back to you on various devices and what those might be. We'll talk about specifically sharing things like that a little bit later, but um, this is a great uh, page. This is by Adobe, who do Photoshop and a lot of other tools. Um, and it just simply lists some of the file extensions. So the ones I'm just going to mention to right now that you'll find a lot are MP4. More often than not, you'll see this type of thing coming out of your phone, or if you share a video over the internet, a lot of times it'll be in this format, or if you find something online or somebody sends you this. The reason I mentioned this one first is because it's not proprietary in the way that uh, the other two that I'm going to bring up today are. So MP4, if you ever are exporting video from something, if you ever need to share anything over YouTube or like in an email or in a like a Google Drive folder, something to get somebody some video just quick, like a lesson video, something that doesn't necessarily need super high quality, and you also don't want to worry about um, like running into compatibility issues where somebody can't run something or something like that. This is that. You might recognize its similarity to MP3, like the audio format MP3, and they're related, but MP4 can also contain video information that the MP3 can't. So if you see those, it's always in my head, I always look at it like MP3s and MP4s are the sort of like convenient sharing option. They're lightweight and they're small size, so they can fit in a lot of places and not cause a lot of people very many issues, especially if they have to download them or you have to upload them. So this is definitely something if you're sharing stuff, you'll find yourself using a lot, and is always a good option. And a lot of video software tends to default to this. MOV and WMV, I want to bring up just because they're proprietary. So MOV is the Apple or Mac QuickTime movie format. So, and then the WMV is the Windows Media Viewer or Windows video format. MOV runs in the default video player on Macs called QuickTime, and WMV runs in the, I think it might actually be defunct by now, but the old Windows Media Player is why it's called Windows Media Viewer. But these ones can run on the other ones if you get the specific player for them. So for example, if I got a WMV on my Mac computer, QuickTime won't be able to open it. I'll probably be able to preview it nowadays with how compatibility works, but it won't be as compatible. A Windows file, for example, like WMV, won't be as compatible with my Mac, and an MOV won't be as compatible with my Windows computer. So that's just something to bear in mind. It's easy to make stuff at .mov, especially if you do like with QuickTime on Mac, for example. You can, it's not super critical, but you can screen record if you want to with the QuickTime player. And for example, if you did something like that, if that was something you were interested in doing, it would make a .mov file for you, and you might need to convert it. So we'll talk about conversion and that kind of stuff later if people are super interested in it. But I'll briefly mention a good program for it. But otherwise, just bear in mind that basically, if you want to not run into any issues, use MP4. And if you are running into issues, check if it's one of these files. There's a lot of other ones on here, and in general, they're specialized and not necessarily anything that you'll run into just by sort of sharing stuff over the internet, especially for teaching. This is another Adobe page that lists some audio files. And actually, if anybody is interested in these, let me hide my meeting controls really quick. I'm going to post these links in the chat if anybody really wants to copy them and look at them without having to go find them again. So the big deal with audio is just to remember, it's in some ways it's a lot like video in that there are different qualities of video. If I export my video a certain way, or if I put it on certain streaming or on certain services or whatever, it's going to change quality depending on what I do or depending on where I put it. But in general, the actual video file doesn't necessarily indicate very much in the way of quality. What it really indicates is compatibility. So like I said, an MOV is going to be more compatible with Apple devices, a WMV is going to be more compatible with Windows devices, and an MP4 is going to be more universally compatible. That being said, audio files, the specific file format that they're in indicates quality, at least to a certain extent. And so you can see that they organize this page in lossy formats, lossless formats, and uncompressed formats. The most important thing to bear in mind is basically MP3s are super shareable. Like I said before, MP3s, MP4, those are very shareable sizes. Each one of these different audio files, if you're working in software that's specifically designed to handle them, can be set to different quality sizes in and of themselves beyond just what the specific file format will do. So the thing about sharing audio and video online is basically video, in terms of how the internet handles it, is far ahead of audio. And that's just simply by chance, to be honest. It's just a coincidence, and probably having something to do with the market in terms of for video versus for audio. So in general, you deal with a lot of different quality changes for the audio of your files over the internet compared with video. I can upload, say, a high quality video to YouTube of any of these formats, and it will support the full quality of my video that I've chosen, even up to 4K and 8K in some cases, super high quality. Audio, however, is generally degraded in order to increase loading times, and it's also degraded and changed to help with the listening experience across different songs or different videos and stuff like that. There's techniques that people use online to make it so when you listen to one song versus another song on certain streaming services, for example, that will make it so they're the same volume. But to do that, it requires a certain degrading in audio quality. It's usually pretty subtle, but it's just worth bearing in mind, basically, that what you're dealing with audio compared to video is quality across all of these, and file size. So the .wav file, and sometimes if you're working in Apple, .aiff, these two are the most common high quality files you'll find. And they're if you need something that's really, really high quality, or something for like a CD or a professional project or anything like that, that you know is going to be played out in a space that doesn't necessarily need to like worry about downloading, like you're not like trying to stream it, for example, or anything like that. And you don't need to like email it and have people be able to access it through email. These .wav and .aiff files are really good because they're super high quality. However, they're really big and they're not always compatible everywhere. And for example, if I really want a high quality listening experience and I want to share it with somebody over Google Drive, as an example, I'm sure most of you know that you can preview an audio file in a Google Drive link, and it'll play it for you. But if it's a WAV file, it's not guaranteed that it's not undergoing some kind of compression, some kind of degrading of the audio quality. So if you're really, really concerned with audio quality, sending like a WAV or an AIFF or something like that over an email, but like with a download link, is usually a good thing. Some people even go so far as, like engineers that I've heard of, will go so far as to send their clients or anybody who really, really wants them to make sure that they listen to the high quality version. They'll compress an audio file, or they'll compress the files in like a zip file or a RAR file, for example. I'll go over that now. to make sure that their clients download the file and then listen to them on their computer, because guaranteed you're not going to, well, more than likely you're not going to hear the high quality version over the internet. So for example, let's say I have this audio file like on my desktop here. It's an MP3, you can see, but let's just pretend it's a high quality file. If I right click that and I tell it to compress, on Windows computers, this would be right clicking and telling it to zip the file, but they call it compress here. And if I click that, it's going to make me a new file. That's a .zip file. You can see the .zip at the end. And if I send this to somebody, they have to download it onto their computer and they have to double click it, which will then extract the file again. It will make the file. So sometimes people will force people to download a file like that so that they make sure that they hear it in high quality. And speaking of zipping files, that's another way of decreasing your file sizes if you run into issues like that. If you have a large video file or anything like that, that again, you don't want people to stream, you need to send it to them, they need the video file for some reason, it's just too big, you can always compress it or zip it or RAR it, anything like that. And again, on Mac computers, it's labeled as compress. So this type of file, a zip file, is always going to be very shareable. So to move really quickly over to the lossy formats. So these are perfect for sharing over emails. These are perfect for really quick stuff like a metronome track, or if a student needs to hear something. This type of file and AAC are really common. So for example, if you use your voice recorder on your phone and you email it to yourself, a lot of times it will be AAC if you're a iPhone user. And in general, honestly, for most things, even like recording, they're quality enough to do most things. In general, you don't need a very high quality file, especially if what you really need is to share it and to make sure that people can download it and it doesn't cause them a bunch of issues. So yeah, an MP3 or an AAC if you're on Apple devices. Literally even for sending for a virtual ensemble, frankly, is awesome. It will sound good. It's just that they're small and convenient. So that will bring me to talking about that process of recording. Like I said, in general for recording, your phone is a really amazing device, even if you don't have a super new one. So somebody direct messaged me here, timecode and snap the grid to tighten up audio video performance in AVI, AIFF audio format, working format, and then converting to MP3, or converting to MP4. So if I'm understanding the full question here, so timecode and snap the grid to tighten up audio video performance in AVI. Let me run back here. I think you might be referring to sharing some of these things or working together. AIFF audio format. AIFF audio format is like a wave, but it's Apple's proprietary format. I'm kind of not fully understanding the question. But yeah, working format and then converting to MP4, converting and all these things. Yeah, I think maybe that's what I can cover here to help with that before getting into recording too much. So in general, converting files isn't an issue. You can't convert from a lower quality file to a higher quality file, um, and necessarily and expect an increase in quality. But if you're converting from a high quality file down to a low quality file, and generally you won't run into any uh, deep problems, basically. Um, so and any audio format truly and video format is going to be functional to do tweaks to use in a digital audio workstation, audio software, or video software. Any of these formats are going to be fine for that. So because I did mention it, I kind of forgot. Uh, the most popular software for converting files, if you do have something really large and you don't have a way of getting it to one of these smaller files, it's called Handbrake. Yeah, this is by far the most popular one, because it's free. And once again, like the last time, this is open source software, so it has a particular flavor to it that's very compatible. So it can work really anywhere. And as long as you get to know where everything is, it will work just as good, if not better, than paid software. But again, it's very compatible. So Handbrake, I'll drop that in the chat really quickly. If you're ever looking for something to convert an audio file or a video file, especially video files, this is excellent, and this would be the tool to look for. So hopefully that answered the question that was DM'd to me, at least in general. Again, I'm not really here to talk like really professional formats or professional concerns. It's really just to get people up to speed in terms of the idea of getting some basic work done in order to collaborate over the internet in their teaching environments and in some basic performance environments, and just to get people up to speed on some of the ideas so that hopefully everybody can Google stuff if they're looking for it or if they don't know what certain things are. So over to recording again. Your phone recorder and your phone microphone is in general pretty solid. It's unless you have quite an old phone, and I'm thinking more than 7 or 8 years old, it's safe to say that you can get a lot of work done with just your phone recorder. But some terminology that might help if you're looking for something more high quality, and some technical concerns that you need to worry about basically is that in order to get a high quality microphone or high quality audio into your computer, you have to have a device that can translate what the microphone does or anything like that into something that your computer can understand. Traditionally, that's a sound card. So you can see over here on the right hand side, traditionally, this process was handled by sound cards. And nowadays, what people typically get is they have a sound card in their computer, and you can plug things like a headphone into it. You can listen to things, you can play music from your computer, and it plays through the sound card, and it's usually really good and high quality. And if you want something specialized for recording like a microphone, like a high quality microphone of some kind, in general, you want something called an audio interface, which is basically a combination of a mixer and a sound card. So it will let you plug in microphones or guitars, or even some of them will let you plug in like synthesizers that run MIDI out of the back. So if you're ever looking for something to upgrade and to be able to get really high quality microphone in, like a condenser microphone or a dynamic microphone, you need an audio interface basically. A condenser microphone. So for example, I have an iPhone 11 Pro, and the microphones on that are going to be dynamic microphones. And a lot of times if you see like in live performance or anything like that, you'll see dynamic microphones. And I'm not going to necessarily get into the details of either of these, but I just want to let you know that in general, the differences between a dynamic and a condenser microphone is a condenser microphone is more detailed and more high quality. A condenser microphone is really good for sort of all around recording, vocals, anything that needs to be loud. You can do a lot with just dynamic microphones, and in general, they're cheaper. But the microphone that's in my phone, for example, is not just one microphone, but two. In these newer phones, they have stereo recorders on them, so that you essentially have two microphones in the device that you could record like a band with, for example, and it would sound kind of done if you positioned everybody in the room right and everything like that. But again, they're not as high quality as a dedicated microphone will be, but they're pretty close these days. So again, the big difference here, the big takeaway maybe, is if you want something high quality, if you want something specialized, you need an audio interface, and then you need a microphone to plug into that audio interface. And the two different kinds are condenser microphones and dynamic microphones. Condenser microphones are super high quality and specialized, and dynamic mics are really all around microphones and still high quality, but not as detailed. So now I want to talk about cameras really quick. Again, this is, or I should say not again, but this is a place of departure compared to microphones with the devices you already have. So my laptop camera, so this is the new MacBook, and this is the camera that it has in it. This camera hasn't changed for, I don't exactly know the exact number of years, but it's the same camera that they've been using for a number of years in these laptops. So as a result, it's pretty low quality, but it can still get certain jobs done. It doesn't look bad. It's more just like if I was going to record a professional performance or something like that, or something that I needed to send for some professional purpose, I wouldn't necessarily pick my laptop camera to do it. I'd probably pick my phone camera. And I'll talk about quality really quick for video files, because we did talk about quality for audio files. Again, audio files, the thing that differentiates them is quality. But for video files, the big difference, the way to understand the quality about what you're dealing with is this P number in general. So this says 720p, standard definition that you don't get as much on TV anymore, but you certainly used to, would be 480p. If I look up, sorry, I need to hide my video controls. So if I look up 480p, 480p is considered the standard standard resolution. It's used very rarely now. And again, my own laptop camera, which is relatively low quality by today's standards, is records in 720p. So the next step up would be 720p. And now we're starting to talk about what you see a lot of times on YouTube or most HD TV streams now. The other big difference between something like 480 and 720 is 480 is square, which is why it's standard definition. So that's why I was saying, nowadays you don't see 480 nearly as much. And 720p is basically the baseline for HD resolution. That's like a rectangle shape. And the way that you can tell if a format or the video you're working with is in 720p, you can see here a lot of times on video software, you see 1280 by 720, 1280 x 720 here. That's how you can tell. If you have to pick a resolution that looks like this, you can always look at the second number to be able to tell what format it is, basically what resolution it is. So the next step up would be 1080p. All of the differences between these, I mentioned the word resolution earlier. And basically what resolution amounts to is kind of something like clarity. So if I compared a 1080p, maybe this picture that I see right here will kind of give a good idea. No, because this is the difference between 4K and 1080. If I compared a 1080p video with a 480p video, basically a 480p video would look more blurry. So if you're having an issue where your picture looks so blurry, it's probably because of this resolution number. And again, if I was looking for in a video software or anything like that, or looking at my file to try to determine like what quality is it without having to look, I can look at the resolution of the video down here. And that will tell me, again, that second number, X whatever, 1080, that's my resolution. So again, the higher that number is, the higher the resolution, but also it determines the kind of shape of the video a little bit. But again, the standard formats these days really are 720p and 1080p. And if you want something really just quality and crisp looking, 1080p in general is what you'll see online. 1080p is like the upper, it's not the upper limit, but it's the upper limit that you usually see if you need something really high quality. If you need something that needs to look good on a TV or something really big, 1080p will almost always get you what you need until you get really large or really high definition. 4K would be the next step up, aka 2160p. This is like the new thing, the newest thing, quote unquote, would be 8K, but I'm not even going to bother talking about that right now. Sometimes you'll see stuff in 4K. This resolution for almost all purposes is unnecessary in terms of teaching or anything like that. But I wanted to bring it up because the big difference between my laptop camera, which is still, this is a brand new laptop, 720p, and my phone is that my phone can record up to 4K resolution. So, and this would be, I think, this is just a guess, but I think at least a 9 or the iPhone X can do 4K. The 8 might be able to do 4K, and I don't remember exactly. But you can set your phone to do 4K. And so if somebody, but I don't know how they would, but if somebody accidentally or anything like that sends you these very large files, that could be why. But I also wanted to bring it up simply because you can record in very, very high quality on your phone. So once again, for most purposes, you can do almost everything you need for teaching with your phone. How do I change resolution to set on 4K on iPhone? So it's just in your properties. Let me or what are they called? Settings on here. I've been switching back and forth between my computer and my phone quite a lot lately. I will show you very quickly. I don't have my USB-C cable. Hopefully this works okay without too much hassle. It is too much hassle. So, oh wait, maybe I can do it now. I don't want to take too much more time. Okay, cool. So in my settings on my phone, if I go look for my camera, and while I'm here, I'll also show you how to do high quality audio. And this is just on iPhone. And if anybody needs, you can always Google for Android or anything like that. But here's, if I go to my camera, there's a bunch of settings in here. If I go to record video, I can change it here. And FPS is how smooth the video looks. For almost all purposes, 30 FPS is what you'll use. But you can try the other ones if you like them. The other way is to open your camera, switch to video mode, and at the top right-hand corner, you can see that I can change the quality from HD, which would be 1080p, to 4K, which is 2160p, just by tapping in the photo setting. And you can change the FPS there too. And then to go back really quick in settings, and I might go through this a little too fast, but you can always, I'll upload this to YouTube, so you can always look there. If I go to voice memos, so this would be the standard voice recorder. If I go to voice memos, you can see there's a setting here called audio quality. By default, this is set to compress. And like we said before, compression and compressing means reducing the quality. And basically what the voice memos sound like when they're set to compressed is like practically like a phone call. It's almost that low resolution. If you set it to lossless, you can record on, especially on the newer iPhones, you can record high quality stereo audio with the phone. But again, you have to go into the voice memos app setting, which is in your settings, just down by finding it, voice memos, and changing the audio quality section to lossless. Okay. Let me get back my monitor. So again, speaking of best practices, basically, unless you plan to do this distance stuff for the rest of your life, your phone can do a lot of work. That's all to say. And you can always email these files to yourself if you record them on there and need them on your computer for any reason. And so I want to mention, while I'm here, this app called Dolby On. Dolby On, as in the opposite of off. And if you're ever looking for something to basically turn your phone into a like a specifically high quality recorder, this is a free app called Dolby On that will let you do that. And it has some great automatic settings where you can record yourself doing stuff and it will sound really, really good and really professional without having to do a bunch of extra. And if you want, you can tweak some of those settings yourself. So that's all, just to mention that. noise reduction, compression, EQ, de-essing, all sorts of stuff that you would expect an engineer to do will automatically happen in here. And it gives you really, really easy ways of changing, as you can see with this picture here, gives you really effortless ways of changing the quality and the sound of your audio without having to know what you're doing necessarily. Okay. So again, just to cover them, if you do want to upgrade or do something other than your phone or anything like that, much like with the interfaces, stuff like that, you need a separate device of some kind. And in this case, for your computer, that would be a webcam of some kind. And they come in all sorts of different types of flavors. And again, all you're looking for is what resolution it records in. Something like 720p would be like my computer. There are some computers that have higher quality ones. So if you want something really, really high quality, you might try to find a 4K or 2160p or 1080p webcam. Another option for you, if you really want to record really high quality video or pictures or anything like that, beyond what your phone is capable of, getting a DSLR camera would be an option. So that's another phrase that's very Googleable, is DSLR camera. And there's lots of recommendations that everybody has for different purposes. And that would let you record very high quality video. In some cases, even television and movie quality at various price points. I have some examples of some software here, but again, I'm not going to get super into it other than to say these are terms that you can Google for some of these things. There's free versions of all these things. There's paid versions of all these things. There's versions that people use in movie studios more often than they do in music studios. And there's all sorts of different varieties. And they are all great and they all get the job done. But a digital audio workstation is what you need if what you want to do is work explicitly with audio. If what you want to do is make an amazing audio track or amazing recording or something that sounds super professional, you need to find a digital audio workstation. Simply recording out of your device, you can do a lot with it. And if you know recording techniques, you can even do more by just simply positioning people in space correctly, putting your mic in the right spot. But if you really want super professional sound, getting a digital audio workstation and learning to use them is what you need to do. Or paying somebody who knows how to use them and telling them to do something for you because it is a job. On the flip side, video editing software, that's all it's called, would be what you need. There's free versions, there's paid versions, there's all different kinds on different stuff. They all do a lot of the same stuff. But if you need to edit your video, make cuts, all that type of thing, there's even mobile versions of both of these things, digital audio workstations. There's stuff on your phone that you can get. But if you need to have something that looks like a movie or a TV show or anything like that, you need to find some video editing software. And that will give you control over multiple video clips, for example, or combining audio and video together. Some digital audio workstations even let you do really basic combining of audio and video. So sometimes, depending on what it is, like Logic, for example, or Pro Tools, you can even do some video with just a digital audio workstation. But those are both the professional tools that people use to get those things done at a high quality level, basically. And then I wanted to mention Zoom and OBS, kind of on the last leg here before I rush through sharing at this point, and even some rehearsal stuff. I might go over a bit if people need to leave in order to just get a good recording for everybody to reference, so I can go back over some things. So OBS and Zoom are excellent if what you want to do is basically create a teaching video or do live streams for some of your teaching or performing or anything like that. These are the tools that people use, is basically what I'm here to say. Zoom and Open Broadcast software, OBS. There's all sorts of different kinds of OBS, and it's a big learning curve, and it's not something for the faint of heart to jump into. But if you're ever wondering, what do people use to live stream or do any of that type of thing, it's most likely OBS. And the beauty of Zoom that I wanted to bring up is it's not just for doing things like this where I'm talking to you and we all join together. Like I'm doing here, I'm recording it right now. So it's a great way to make a super basic teaching video, and it will automatically, by hitting record, it will automatically compile a very shareable video for you. It's not very large. They're not very high resolution or anything like that. And you don't really have to do a lot to them as long as you're happy with what you recorded. So if you need something really, really basic, what you already have, Zoom, is an excellent tool to be able to do some teaching. Again, if quality and all that kind of thing, if the information is the most important thing that you need to get across, it's incredible. It's really, really good. So really quick, again, largely I wanted to talk about these things because I had gotten a question prior to these about specifically sharing and the differences between some of these different services. So for sharing videos and files and anything like that, you really have only a few options. You have cloud services like Google Drive and Dropbox and WeTransfer. My personal favorite these days is WeTransfer. And then you have video sharing services like Vimeo and YouTube. There are others, but these are the big ones, Vimeo and YouTube. The big difference is between Vimeo and YouTube is really just the interface and the culture behind it, to be honest. Both of them you can upload high quality video to and share high quality video. You can upload videos privately and share private links with people for all of them. The big difference is, like I said, the culture surrounding them. So YouTube is very popular. It's very has widespread use, and it has the option of creating a channel that a lot of people could get invested in if that was something that was of interest to you. But for just sharing, YouTube and Vimeo are very similar. Where Vimeo differs is that in general, it's sort of seen as more professional. There are plans for cloud storage and video creation and branding that they offer that YouTube does not offer. YouTube is very free. Vimeo is free for basic use, but businesses and artists a lot of times use Vimeo. But either way, they both basically can get the job done. For file sharing, like I said, Dropbox, Google Drive, and WeTransfer are definitely the biggest options. There's tons of other options out there. And obviously, there's also always just sharing over email. If your file size is small enough, if you can manage that, you can always just drop something in your email. And if you use Gmail, it will automatically create Google Drive links. So you don't even necessarily need to think about these as options, basically. That being said, Dropbox is more premium than Google Drive. Google Drive, to get a lot of space, is very cheap compared to Dropbox if you need to use it a lot. But Dropbox has some features that are more efficient and effective than Google Drive. I see the difference very similar to YouTube and Vimeo. So, I mean, after all, YouTube is owned by Google. Google Drive, very accessible, very inexpensive. Some features are less professional than they could be, but they get the job done most of the time. Dropbox, more premium, gives you some stuff to start out with, but you quickly will find that you need to start paying some money or something like that. But a lot of their professional tools for professionals who need to do a lot of things over the internet are much more thought out on Dropbox. But either way, they're going to get you a file that you can share. WeTransfer is amazing if you don't need your whoever you're sending files to be able to preview. You don't need to make an account. And if you need to send something that just doesn't fit in an email, it's super easy to share those things here. And it's literally just as simple as it looks on the site. You add your files and you get a link. The only issue with this is if you need something to stay around for a long time, it can be really dangerous because the link will disappear and die basically in 2 weeks after you send it. And that's the way that they make the service available, is that they will reserve you 2 gigs for free that you can upload. And in 2 weeks, that 2 gigs falls off so that somebody else can use that 2 gigs. But again, if you really need to send something quickly and efficiently, that's no bigger than 2 gigs for free anyways. This is really effective WeTransfer. So hopefully that sort of explains some of the differences in sharing here. They all will get the job done, and every single one does the basic things of sharing just as well as all the other ones. The way that they are specialized, though, is where they differ. So I know we're running short on time, and apologies for not leaving much space for questions, but I hope that people have felt comfortable throwing at least the questions that they have had so far in the chats. And again, I'm always open to help with emails, but to finish up, I'm going to really quickly go over some basic ideas about rehearsing over the internet, and then just show you some tools that you can go look at and pick from that you might prefer over others. The main thing to understand is that there will always be some kind of time that it takes for my information from where I'm sitting in my house to travel to you. There will always be some amount of time. It's very short, but there will always be some time. So things like music are very difficult to do, as I'm sure you all have noticed over the internet, because if I do something over here, it won't sync up. We'll be out of sync. In order to combat that, a lot of times you have to do workarounds, and none of these services that I'm going to show here are perfect, but some of them are better than others. For something like Zoom rehearsals, you really are just stuck having to mute everybody else. If you have a piano or something like that that you want to play or sing, and then have everybody sing, that back and forth is going to be missing unless you come up with some way to work around that and get people to, sing solo, listen to them sing, something like that. Come up with some creative way to deal with the fact that there's lag. Glenn earlier was asking about if I do, hang on, I need to click into Zoom here. No problem. I got the chat there. So I'm just really quickly going to pull up chat so that I can be in Zoom. Well, okay. So there's a setting in Zoom that you can do called original sound. I'll see if there's a way that I can actually get this up. But at this point, it's looking like it doesn't really, we would not prefer that I did that. And I'm burning time. But let me see if I can do it this way. There we go. So in your preferences, this is going to be the quickest version of this ever. And if anybody needs help, I just want to basically make you all aware. You can see down here, there's a setting that says music and professional audio, and you can set some nice high quality options. That's what that's to say. So again, the last thing with the last 3 minutes that we technically have here is just to mention there are services that could make your life easier. Again, these are brand new things, a lot of them, and a lot of them don't always work super good because the technology just isn't there. It wasn't ready for us to have to all socially distance and have to all share things over the internet so regularly, especially with music. The 3 that I know are the most popular, Jam Kazam is super popular. I'm going to drop these all in the chat too for those of you who are still hanging. Here's Jam Kazam. This is Cyborg Llama, and I'll mention the differences here. And then Jack Trip. Jam Kazam, the way all of these work sort of on the baseline is that rather than me connecting to you like I am right now, or something along those lines where I have to sort of figure that out. What they do is they have a dedicated spot that we all connect to. So then hopefully we can be a little bit more in sync rather than having to kind of connect in these more random ways. They have a server someplace that you can connect to directly, and then they handle making sure everybody is in sync. Jamkazam, free, seems to get a lot of professional use, and seems to be very user friendly. And a lot of people have used it for a lot of different purposes, and it's really effective. And it's definitely at the top of its game right now. Cyborg Llama is something that I learned about very recently for virtual ensembles and rehearsing. Basically, what it does is it lets you set up sort of it lets you set up environments for your students or whoever to connect to and record or play along with whatever you provide. So you can set up little spots for specific instrument players to go in your ensemble or your teaching group or anything like that. And you can present them with the tools that they need to know, and not the stuff that they don't. That's a really vague way of putting it, but it's because Cyborg Llama lets you change it and alter it and adjust it to to your needs. And so there isn't necessarily a great way of describing it other than to say, again, you can, for example, make a setup that when your students connect, all they see is a recorder and a player. And in the player, you already have their part ready for them to listen back to. And they can listen back and play along and rehearse, and then they can hit record. And then what you see when they're done with that is you get their audio file automatically. So it handles a lot of stuff for virtual collaboration and virtual ensembles kind of on its own. And it's something definitely to look into if that's something that interests you. And then the last thing is Jacktrip. Jacktrip is I believe it's a Stanford project, and it's very famous in the institution and institutional networked music. The reason it's called network music is because we're doing it over a internet network, that type of thing. Jamkazam says you need to use Ethernet instead of Wi-Fi to reduce lag time. Exactly. So this is the thing with all of these that I was saying before. There is an amount of time that it takes for what I do in my house to get to you. And in order to shorten that time or make it faster, it's better to do it with an Ethernet cable than it is with a Wi-Fi connection, because a Wi-Fi connection is less stable. It can be really powerful if you have a really powerful router and a really powerful computer with a powerful Wi-Fi adapter, but it's just simply less stable, and it will inevitably introduce some lag in the network. Basically, it will inevitably introduce some type of latency or distance. And so an Ethernet cable, a cable directly to your router is much less of a distance for my signal, what I'm doing here right now, to travel all the way over to your house or wherever you are. And on top of that, it's a physical connection instead of over the air. So this is going to be the case with all of this type of stuff. If this is just a networking thing, basically, it's like if you want to reduce lag, if you want to reduce latency, the difference between what I'm doing here and what you see, you have to get faster internet, or you have to get an Ethernet cable or something like that. And again, none of it is perfect, and there is never a situation that can get you perfect synchronicity across space and time at the moment. And that's just because the technology wasn't necessarily ready for us to need this now. That being said, Jacktrip is by far the most advanced of all of these, but it's also the most advanced of all of these in terms of using it. It's very popular among people who were doing networked music performance as an art form prior to a lot of this distance learning that we're doing now. It was very popular for that type of thing, just as a research thing. So what Jacktrip does is they'll sell you a box that you can plug into and hook up into, which will potentially give you an even faster connection to other people. And you should be able to potentially record and perform with people at super, super low latency, but it requires networking and it requires sort of a professional understanding of some of these tools. So that, again, just to kind of finalize here, is sort of the range of tools that we have. Sort of JamKazam might be the most accessible, but it's going to be, it's not always going to be perfect. Cyborg Llama requires some learning, but it will let you do quite a lot. And then Jacktrip is the most professional, but potentially will get you the best results. But it's very technical compared to JamKazam, for example. So that was a lot to talk about. And again, hopefully, we have the recording, so you can always watch back on some of this stuff. And that's what I really wanted it to be, as a resource. If you don't know what a thing is, to be able to learn what the word is, to be able to Google it, or at least get yourself started in some of these terminologies in some of this world. But I think that's all I have to talk about. If anybody who's still here has any questions right now, I can definitely answer some. But otherwise, again, I'm always here to get emails. The video will be there, anything like that.
Thanks a million, Isaac. That was a lot, but I think we got it.
Yeah,
We
hopefully
got
we
it all
made a
covered.
nice
Yeah.
YouTube resource at
That
least.
was, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.